watching RPadTV, and it is February, which is Black History Month in America. And I have the opportunity to talk to the founders of a majority Black-owned studio called Afrime Studios. Erik Reynolds, I've known you for 20-something years. It is excellent to see you. And your partner, Crandon, I'm excited to meet you. I feel like I've known you through Erik and just hearing stories about you guys working together. But this is my first time meeting you. I'm excited. How are you guys today?
I'm wonderful. Anytime we get to talk Afrime Studios, it is a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day.
And it's actually a beautiful day out here. We're based in South Carolina.
That's right.
And the weather is playing havoc with my sinuses. If you see me like twitch my eyes, because I've got like a sinus headache just popping in my head, just doing its thing. Like I was about to text you and say, "Oh, Ray, I gotta push again," and then Crandon was actually available for this, and then I realized like I can't do this to a friend, because we have 20 years of secrets that you could release slowly into the internet to ruin my whole career and life probably. So here I am. So all the nervous tics and twitches, some of them are just yes, my mental health, but also a minor sinus headache. How are you doing today, bud?
Well, I feel like I'm winning because I feel better than you do.
Well, I think the audience should also know that you feel better than I do as well, because you are the commissioner of our fantasy football league, not American football.
No, Premier League.
No. This is English Premier League football. And as the commissioner, it's your job to give me shit because my personal favorite team, Tottenham, just fired its manager. And it just fired its manager for like the 5th year in a row. So that's breaking news, which is it's not even breaking my heart. It's like I'm just so empty. like Tottenham fans are just like a husk. We show up, we love our badge, but we're just a husk.
You have hearty souls to be able
to please breathe life back into me.
Yeah.
Isn't that an Evanescence song?
That's right. So to give Crandon some info on our relationship, we've worked together, you on the PR marketing side. I used to be on the journalism side of things in the gaming business. But for the last few years, our relationship has mostly revolved around me dominating you in Fantasy Premier League.
Because as someone with significant ADHD, I'm like, I got to switch players out. Oh, that's fun.
Yes.
So that is about us. I want to learn about how you guys met. You guys known each other about 4 years now or something like that.
Coming up on 4 years. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I've read you talking about how you met, but I want to hear the story from you guys.
Crandon, you want to tell it?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll jump right in. So one of the things that I've been able to do, I've been blessed to be able to, I drive for Uber a lot, and so that's how I was able to fund this whole endeavor prior to me meeting E. And so one night I'm driving, it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I picked this guy up, and he's like, "Hey bro, I just ordered a pizza. Do you mind if I give you like $20? Would you just wait on me?" And I'm like, "It's the last ride of the night. I'm not doing another ride after this guy." Sure. Turn it off, and we're waiting there. The pizza's not here yet. So at that point, I'm like, let's make some conversation. So I'm like, "Hey, I'm a video game developer." So I'm showing him the very rough, super rough part of my demo, and I'm like, "Hey, look what I built. I'm against," and I don't know who he is. I'm just talking to him because it's what I do. I mean, if you're in the car, why wouldn't I tell you what I do? You never know who you're gonna meet, obviously. And then so he's just talking. We're having this really cool conversation, and so we're waiting there. Pizza takes like 20 minutes. So and then I gotta drive him home. Him and his buddy drive them both to their location. So that's like a 40-minute ride. You get to learn a lot about a person. Gives me his number, like, "Yeah, give me a call. I've done this, and I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I've picked up over 16,000 people at that point or something like that. So one more person telling you that they've done something and they're doing something, you're like, whatever. So drop them off. Don't think anything about it. Never, Doesn't even cross my mind. About 6 to 8 months later, I get another ride. And he comes up and I'm like, all right, cool, this guy, And he gets in the car, leans over the seat, he's all into space. His face is like right here. It's like, hey, buddy, how's your game going? And I'm like, okay, who are you? And so then he's like, hey, we get to talking and the conversation's really, really good. We're talking about everything about the industry, about anime, about representation, all this stuff. So once again, turn my app off. Conversation's wonderful. I like to talk, as you could probably tell. I like to run my mouth. And so we get to talking. He's like, yeah, put my number in your phone. I'm like, I put his number in my phone, like your number's in. She's like, yeah, I told you. You gave me your number before. I'm like, huh, okay. This guy might be a guy. So at that point, I'm like, all right, now I got to go look him up. And so I look him up and I look on his LinkedIn after I dropped him off. And
there's a lot
I'm like,
there.
Oh, crap. He shared my website on his LinkedIn 8 months ago, the first time I talked to him. And so at that point now, it's like, all right. And then I look at his resume. Oh, you worked at EA. You worked for you didn't who? Okay, this guy's a guy. He's been in the industry for how many years? So now I'm doing stuff, and I'm posting a bunch of pictures on Instagram, videos and stuff. And one of those days, a couple months later, he hits me up on Instagram. He's like, hey, bro, we really need to sit down. Because still, at this point in time, I still haven't called him. Like, I still haven't actually used that number that he gave me. And he's reached out to me on Instagram. It's like, hey, we need to sit down and have a conversation. Let's meet. And then, of course, I'm going to say this. He does the little, the little flex thing where, you live in a condo on the top floor. It's wall-to-wall windows overlooking the bay with yachts and stuff. So, of course, I'm going in here like, oh, snap. This about to be crazy because you got to go in, hold on, let me buzz you in. Got to go in the elevator. Elevator takes you up to the top floor. And I knew I was doing something right when he was like, you want some refreshments? And they got cucumber water. And I'm like, oh, okay. We got the cucumber water. Okay. I'm here. And so after that, we have this really good conversation. And he asked me, do you want to start a business or do you want a job? I told him I'm uncomfortable. I don't need a job. And he's like, all right, that's what I wanted to hear. And fast forwarded 3.5 years later, or however long it's been, because now time is just kind of, once you're friends, you just become friends. And fast forwarded, now we have a company, and that is the start of Afrime Studios. That's our origin story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Erik, I wanted to ask you, because I've known you as a mover and shaker for a long time now, but what was your first impressions of Crandon and his game? And when he picked you up the first time,
Ray,
how drunk and or high were you?
I won't comment on either of those things. I am now sober, just so everyone knows. Been sober for like 2.5, 3 years. So Ray, you would connect with this really hard based off of your game journalism days. I looked at, or I heard, I didn't need to look at him. I heard one of the sharpest pitches I've ever heard in my life. I heard a technical founder. I heard a world that I've never seen before in games. I heard a deep passion for storytelling. I heard a visual resonance. I heard an audio resonance within this game world as well. I heard a desire to do this no matter what. And I heard a person who, didn't want me to open a door to Epic, which is only a state away, right? Like they wanted to build their business.
Right.
And having been in 1 million pitches like you have, right? I was like, this is an A++. And I was really hoping like, hey man, at first it was like, however I can help you get this off the ground, I will. It wasn't like, let's go into business, pal. I'm gonna make you a star, kid. It was just like, I want to learn more. I want to educate myself. Here's my number. 8 months go by, and I just, like you said, I just, someone else put this to me, and I thought it was apt, but also a little, a little too praiseworthy was I'm just the type of guy that actually gives a shit when people are creative, and it doesn't matter where they're from or what background they have. If you are creating something, whether it's any kind of art at all, and you're passionate about it, like, I'm going to sit down and listen to your story, and I'm going to consume that art. I'm going to collaborate with that art in any way I can. And I just happened to meet, you know, my future co-founder, who right from the jump, like when we decided to go into business together, which we both vetted each other for many months first, because becoming a co-founder with someone is a marriage. It is, you gotta learn how to fight. You know what I mean? Like, make sure you actually don't fight, you debate. And the mutual respect is never questioned, right? You have to learn to be vulnerable. You have to learn so many of these skills that, you know, a couple of marriages of mine I didn't learn yet. So this is probably the most successful marriage in my life. Shout out to the experts. Yeah, no, like I just met this incredibly talented human being who's a bit of a polymath, and we just started building something together. And from the get-go, I wanted it to be, and we both wanted it to be mission specific, because we aspire to be the only Black-owned publisher in video games in the U.S. We know of a handful in Africa, but not in the U.S. And we're one of maybe like 5 or 10 Black-owned development houses that have more than 4 people here in the States. So we wanted to be mission focused while also just knowing the fact that we've got to make a great game. And so we set up the company so that Crandon remains CEO no matter how much dilution we go through, which, you know, that hasn't been a problem, considering the investment world has been a little tight lately.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a bit. But thanks to some amazing angel investors, like we have a game that attracted CAA, and we got representation, and we have been in the biggest rooms in the industry thanks to the world that Crandon envisioned, and thanks to the game that he and our team are building together. And we don't have a publisher yet. We're in multiple conversations, but this ride has been wild, man. Like I walked away from doing PR full time about 8 years ago. I founded a TV and production studio. I founded a television network. Both of those ran really well for about 2 years each, and then COVID hit.
Oh, that's right.
And I was kind of, you know, despite living in a penthouse apartment, as Crandon describes,
with cucumber water. Don't forget.
He didn't tell you the cucumber water flowed out of the tap.
Whoa. Do you live in a spa? What's going on?
So you can imagine me coming in here like got the wide eyes and everything, but it's funny. It's funny because I tell people that, because it's like when you have this and you come from, like, I'm from the south side of Chicago. So where I come from, you see this and you're like, we made it. I'm on now. And it's like, it's funny because that was just the beginning of the process. Mm-hmm. And as E says, it's been a marriage of 2 minds melding together and a friendship of trust and belief. And like I tell anybody, we are a mission-based company, and I was able to find a co-founder who is just as bullish on the mission as he is on the actual product itself, which when he goes out and does his thing, I don't have to worry about what E's doing, because I already know he has the mission in mind. So it's really cool that, you know, where you can have a co-founder where you can just like, I got tunnel vision over here because he takes care of this. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't even have to question that. So my bad, you know, sorry for the love fest, you know, the bro fest, but I love working with my guy.
There's times where Crandon's like, "Hey, Erik, don't be so militant, okay?" All right, you're good.
But I love the way you guys talk about what you're doing and talking about each other. It almost sounds like an origin story for a band or something, you know, because being in a band is a very intense relationship, same as like founding a company like you guys are.
We're both musicians, and so maybe that's why it works. Is that
maybe, yeah,
you know, I've always had like, you know, a split brain, maybe a split personality too, like a deeply analytical side, and then just a pure art, you know, I can, you know, just imagine and blah, 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 blah. But so does Crandon. Crandon has exactly the same curse and blessing that I do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we just, you know, our brains just interact like two AI agents, you know, and it works.
Yeah.
And,
or keeping with music terms,
yeah.
like sometimes you just play music with a guy and you're like, oh, I got a vibe with this guy. Like,
yeah, you just both settle into the pocket, you know?
Exactly.
Yep.
And that sounds like what you guys have.
Yeah.
Crandon, I wanted to ask you a bit about your family's background as a successful in the real estate business. So I wanted to ask you could have had success for the rest of your life selling homes. What made you want to go from giving people homes to giving people worlds?
So one of the things for me is I've always been about creation, and that's the love and the joy that renovating and flipping and things of that nature has done. Is that you're creating, you're looking at this ran down house and you're imagining what it could look like, right. And then you're going in and making that happen. And so initially, the reason why I even started learning Unreal is because Unreal is really good with architectural renderings. So I actually downloaded Unreal the first time. What I learned about Unreal because I saw on YouTube somebody was doing an architectural rendering of a house, and I was like, oh, that would be really cool if I use that to, you know, plan out my renovations for a kitchen or something like that. And then I could see it before I actually go to do it. And so as I started to looking into Unreal, I'm like, wait, this is a video game engine? Oh snap. It's like a certain things happen all at the same time where I dreamed the story and I was like, oh, I'm gonna tell the story. So I was writing the sci-fi novel and I took it to my brother. He was in the studio recording and he let everybody in the studio hear it and all the guys, and they're like, bro, this should be a video game. And so all that stuff happened at the same time. And I was like, well, I'm already looking at this Unreal thing. I got the guys that I trust telling me that I should make the story that I have into a video game. And so it was like a combination. And then that's when it clicked, where it was like, this is where all this creativity, all this stuff that I've been learning and dealing with in my whole life, I get to put all of that in one place. Because in the game, you have to have music, you have to have art. I had a clothing line at one point, so you got to have fashion. So all those creative endeavors that I've done throughout my life, this is the place where I can put all of those things together and use all of that creativity in one place. And so at that point, it was like a no-brainer. Now, I do plan to go back to doing real estate because I love it, because I love building. But right now, my focus is on let's make Universe a thing. And it's not just a thing to us inside Afrime Studios, but a thing for, you know, for people outside of our circle. And then, you know, then I'll go back and get to dabbling, swinging hammers and using drills and stuff.
That's very cool. I never thought of flipping in real estate as a creative process like the way you described it. So really you're just building worlds in a different level, in a different medium. That's very cool.
Exactly. That's the way I look at it.
Very nice. Now, I wanted to ask you guys, what are some of the challenges of being a majority Black-owned studio? You know, not just in terms of, you know, dealing with investors, dealing with other people in the business. And it's just coincidence. As we're talking, the DICE Summit is happening here in Las Vegas. And I remember during one of the award ceremonies, the comedian Jay Moore was the host, and he just looked in the crowd. He's like, this is one of the whitest rooms I've ever been in. So I wanted to ask you guys, you know, how has that been, you know, dealing in the video game business in America, which seems primarily white?
You want to jump off? You want to jump off since you've been in? Okay.
Yeah, you got to tell the party story.
Oh, okay.
But just do me a favor. Don't name the name of the party because they're who throw the party because they're friends of ours.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
So the first time I went to GDC, thanks to E in the wonders and connections he has, we get to this exclusive video game industry party. Top executive. It's like, man, these are the top, several hundreds of the industry. And I walk in here and E's preparing me because he's been around. He's like, hey, I'm just going to give you just know it's going to be an experience. I walk in and out of everybody in the room, there is all cultures, except for those who look like myself. There were 4 Black people in the room. 2 of them were working. One was working the door. One was security. And the other, so technically in that room, there were only 2 people from the industry that looked like me, and one was myself. And literally, a guy from one of the major studios walked up to me and said, "Hey, bro, I know, like where I'm from. I grew up around Black folks. So I went to a HBCU. I came over because you don't look like anybody else here. Because that time I still had my locks. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I just automatically knew you were different. So I wanted to come and see like how'd you get in here." Because I've been trying to get in here for years, and this was a white guy who walks up to me. And so I'm looking around the room, and I'm like, it's funny because within the Black community, there are all these conversations about representation and why representation is not done well, or how many hairstyles we get when we talk about character creators, and what are the body shape options? Do they really look like Black people and things of that nature? And then I'm like, oh, this is exactly why. Because if I'm in the industry and I am the anomaly, then I can't expect the industry in the games to reflect an accurate depiction when there is nobody in the room who can make these decisions and say, yeah, that afro, nobody walks around with the Jackson 5 anymore, my God. Like, stop giving them the Jackson 5 because that was 40 years ago. There are some different hairstyles out that they actually wear, or you go into a character creator and you're like, okay, I got 40 hairstyles. And 30 of them are hairstyles that you've never seen before, but none of them are actually for Afro-descended people. And you're like, so you just had 30 throwaway hairstyles where you could have actually gave to us, but you decided not to? You got Goku on one half, braids on the other, and then a mohawk, and you're like, bro, nobody is choosing that hairstyle, my guy. Nobody is. So that was one of the things where I'm like, I'm walking around and even just moving around GDC, and I'm looking at all the different parts of the world that are represented, and then there's absolutely like you got Latin America, you got Europe, you got all these different spaces, but there is a definite void of anywhere where there is a large Black population. And I'm like,
it was way off campus. You know what I mean? Like it was like the African delegation of developers was like way off campus. And that's not unusual. You get party space where you can get party space, but like to Crandon's point, like show floor, like there wasn't a lot of space dedicated to international folks, especially from continental Africa.
Right. It was like E3 when the international stuff would be in Kentia Hall.
Yes, exactly.
That's a really inside joke for people who went to E3 when that still existed.
Oh, Kentia Hall.
And so for me being a new person, and just as I've always wanted to go to E3, and finally when I was financially stable enough to go, E3 was no longer a thing. And I'm like, really? So going to GDC was actually a super event for me because I'm like, oh, I'm at a game conference. And what it did just remind me of why I set out to do this, because I knew that if I want to see the change, then I got to be the change.
Absolutely.
I can't continue to ask somebody to represent myself in a way when their life may not actually represent me. And so that's, I think, where we have the struggle. And this was one of the conversations that me and E actually had when we first talked about it. It's like, I can't ask somebody who doesn't actually interact with a lot of Black folks on a daily basis to actually understand how to do what's right. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, I shouldn't be begging you. What I need to do is come in and create that space. And so all I always say is, I don't need you to actually include me. I just need you not to exclude me when I go to try to build this space and build this space for people of that look like myself.
Mhm.
Because let's be honest, the people of Afro descent are probably 1.9 billion people around the world. That's 20% of the world's population, 25. It's almost a quarter of the world's population. But we're the only racial group that does not have an industry built around selling to us.
Ah.
And so when we start to think about it, why not? We spend a lot of money. This is what we do. So that has been my mindset was we're going to spend if we create the product. Somebody just has to create the product, because then the industry will be built around seeing that there is a market for that. And so so here we are. But in terms of those challenges, I know that was kind of a long-winded way to get around what you asked, Ray. But those challenges are the normal challenges that any studio starts with.
Of course.
Every studio has the same challenges that we have, which is making sure you got to verify that there's a market there for what you create. The question, the struggle with that is because there isn't an industry already designed directly to that. When you're creating that target market, it's very hard to point to something and say, well, look, here's proof and evidence that, because we've been asked, he knows we've been in the industry. It's like, so tell me, let me show us where there's a market for a game, for a Afro-futuristic RPG. Well, Black people play video games. Well, I mean, but does that mean they're going to support this game? It's like, well, we're here. We support it. We support any other game. Yeah. But here's a game that's targeting directly to them. How do you prove that is a market when where very few people are actually using that as a indicator or identifier?
No, sorry to jump in on this point, but you're making a strong one. It's hard to prove market when you can't set up comps, right? And so, when Japanese RPGs started, absolutely flooding in, and during the NES or Super NES era, I'm sure they got the same question. Oh, do you think Americans are going to play Japanese games, right? And of course, Nintendo's like, we're a Japanese company, go fuck yourself. And and thus the industry was born because other cultures were able to express themselves in games. But when it comes to Afro-American culture or African-American culture or Afro-descendant cultures, the diaspora around the world, what you have is a bunch of incredibly talented individuals, usually, who are pigeonholed in the solo dev or indie space.
Right.
I think Black in Gaming and Community, and there's several organizations that are really shining a big light on those creators, and the folks from DreamCon too. But they're usually pigeonholed into what they can afford to do on their own, because that's where the industry is. It's going to end up being a side scroller, a Metroidvania, something like that, right? Or it's going to be a very, very limited scope style game. Now we've started to see some really interesting entries that are going to help us prove our point, and we're so excited to see the visibility and the I hope sales success. I haven't looked into everybody's numbers yet, but we're starting to see more interesting content out there that helps us prove our point. But from to Crandon's point, there's 670 million gamers of color. There are 100 and something million RPG gamers. The Venn diagram on that is a hit game, right?
Yeah.
And then it's up to us from a quality standpoint on how many of those players can we convince and delight with our game, right? And I'll say the things that publishers don't say out loud, because this is definitely going to get us a publishing deal. I've been in I've been in those boardrooms where, well, first off, I've been in a lot of studios, and when you look around, you see a handful of people of color, right? And let's set aside Asians, Southeast Asians, and
Right.
folks, right? But as far as like a broader representation of Black folks, like you just don't see that many, especially in positions of leadership. Now, we didn't create this company because of the DEI trend. Like we just created a creative company that just happens to be Black owned, right? That's all we care about. And we know that there's an opportunity space because we know there's 670 million customers out there who have never been served because of 20 years of experience of being in these studios where, developers of color would have their ideas instantly squelched or minimized or diminished or just not even considered. And when they were considered, it was one at a time. It's like, okay, we're going to have a Black supporting character. How's that, guys? Okay. All right. We made it past that hoop. The world didn't burn down. Okay. Now we're going to put a Black man on the cover of a World War I video game. And then you have the internet say, oh, there weren't any Black people in World War I. Obviously, they've never heard of the French army. And they've never really read history or understood colonialism and how we took, not we, I mean, not me personally, but it was you. Took people and sent them to war because the rich don't fight wars. And people who are subjugated do. So that character very specifically, I believe, was a French infantry soldier. And I think EA like really took a creative shot, putting him on the cover, and that shouldn't be a thing.
Right.
And having sat around those boardrooms, no one says we shouldn't do it because they don't want to be the racist. I'll just say it. I'll say it out loud. What they say is, we don't make games for the individual groups, and this also applies to the LGBTQIA as well. They're like, we don't make games for individuals. We make games for everybody. But that's also code.
Very much so.
Yeah. It's code for homogeneity, right? Like, so when you say we make games for everybody, that means you can kind of just say, well, you know what? I'm sure there's a gay character in there. I'm sure there's look at her. She's a Black character. And Crandon educated the heck out of me on two fronts. I'm going to tell two quick stories and then I will stop talking. Very early on in our development relationship, Crandon kept sending me builds of our character creator. And I'm stoked. But in my mind, as a experienced publisher, type, I'm like, where's the game? We need game, like people will make their characters great. And he's like, you don't get it, do you? And I'm like, no, like we're not making Hair Simulator 5. He literally said that. It was really, really insensitive, right?
Wow.
And I have these moments where I'm just a dick, and we all know this. But not in a mean way, and more like I don't get it. Like that's where my dickishness comes from. It's a place of love and curiosity. And he's like, you don't get this. We don't get this. In every single video game, we get 3 hairstyles.
Right.
So us spending time to properly represent to the best of our ability and scope as many male and female and neutral hairstyles as we can from our community, the more we have something to talk about, not just about representation, because that gets old quick. You can't market representation. What you can market is product differentiation. And that's what we're marketing. It's like, hey, we know our audience. We know what they have never gotten, and we want to give it to them. That's it.
But even beyond that, when you're talking about being in those boardrooms with companies and executives saying, we make games for everyone, that just seems like such a dishonest answer, because there have been lots of African American stories that have been successful in music and television and movies. So why not video games as well? And it doesn't necessarily appeal to one audience. Like everyone saw Black Panther as an example. Yeah. That didn't just appeal to African American moviegoers. It appeared, I mean, everyone loved that movie. That was a fantastic movie.
Crandon says this really well, but I'm going to say it because I don't know if he knows what point I'm going to make. The industry, most industries, including film and television, when they step in the water of culturally specific characters and locations, they tend to take the easiest leap into stereotypes first.
Yeah.
And so, speaking specifically of the video game industry, if we're and when I say if we, just think of us as the royal we, as Crandon and I are now family. If we're not playing a sport, or we're not in the inner city shooting at each other, or if we're not being tokenized, then it doesn't exist in games.
Yeah. I mean, another example, it might be a stupid example, but I remember I went through a phase when I was binging Empire, and I was telling my friend about it, and he was like, I don't watch black shows. I'm like, it's a black show? I'm like, it's a good show. Like,
good show.
A good story is a good story. I don't care, who's telling it, who's starring in it,
Do you watch It's Always Sunny?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, the show that the gang desperately tries to win an award?
Yes.
The best quote that comes out of that is, okay, we need a black guy. We need a black guy for our bars. The whole setup is the gang is trying to win Best Bar of the Year award, and they're trying to outdo the most broad. It's a metaphor for the
Grammy,
for the Emmys, and why they've never won an Emmy. And one of the best quotes that comes out of that is, "Oh, we need a black friend." And Z, who's a main character, who's a supporting character on that show, comes in with a bunch of his friends. He's like, "The ratio is off. We can't have too many black people, or else this is going to be a black bar." And that's the point. It's like, entertainment is entertainment. When we all saw Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, did we think, about race? No, we thought about
the cool people flying around doing cool stuff. Yeah,
the majesty and the practical and visual effects of wire work,
right?
And how that just blew our fucking minds. So, going back to this, it's just the Hair Simulator 2000, 3000 education seriously educated me. And it's something that Epic brings up when they talk to us about our game is Crandon solved issues that Unreal Engine 5 still has problems with if you build dense hair in the way that you would white hair, right? Or Caucasian hair. And Crandon's got a process that we hold secret, and for reducing the memory size, for reducing the overall impact of having those kinds of textures.
No, but you know what I will say, I will jump in here. On the hair simulator process, we were actually at GDC, and we were at Black and Gaming, and what ended up happening was, we showed our character creator to this table full of Black industry character artists and whatnot. And it's funny because they were actually, this was when Baldur's Gate had just hit, and so they were talking about their character that they had created in Baldur's Gate. They're like, "Oh my god!" And they're showing their builds and whatnot. And I'm like, watch this." We pull up the character creator video that we had on YouTube at the time, slid it on the table. And when I say they lost their mind, they went, and I'm talking to a table of 5 or 6 sisters. and they're like, oh my God, because they're seeing their hairstyles done properly, different hair textures, because obviously, you know, we don't have the same hair texture. So as a black person, we can have the same style, but then you rotate from 4C to 3C to 2C hair, that style looks vastly different depending on the curl pattern, and they're losing their shit. Oh my God, and then he turns to me and says, I understand now. And that's the thing. And so for me, that's the thing where here I am with a white co-founder, and his, as he called dickishness, it wasn't him being racist or anything. It was just a lack of understanding of the culture. And this is the thing that we see when we have these game companies where they don't hire black people to do the work. They hire a focus group and say, is this okay? This is part of the problem, is you can't know the nuances of the culture if you're not of the culture. And so this was me being able to show him, like, this is the cultural impact to us. And so when I'm in a room and I'm having to try to sell this cultural impact, because this is part of the superpower of the game, is it's going to have a cultural impact to a group of people who have never actually got to experience that. You can't tell somebody who doesn't know, they don't see the value in that, because I'm like, what are you talking about? It's just hair. It's like, yeah, it's just hair, but you've had 40 hairstyles every time a game comes out. So to you, it's like, this is not special. But the moment, if you actually pay attention to the community, you're seeing the community every time a game comes out with a character creator, there is a whole conversation about, man, do you look at this hairstyle, bro? Like, perfect example is Stranger Things. The whole conversation about how bad my man, I love him, how bad his hairstyle was. It's like, bro, who was in the room that told you that was okay to do? Like, the black community at large is like, our hair doesn't look like that, bro. Like, I know what you guys were trying to do, but it didn't work. And that's the kind of conversation that happens every time a game comes out. The first thing black folks do is go through the character creator, like, hey, bro, I guess I got to rock a helmet, man, because these styles. Now, the industry has gotten so much better here in the last 2 or 3 years. Games are doing. Baldur's Gate did a great job. Like, a lot of games are doing a lot better job than before. But this is one of those things where we're like, we hang our hat on being accurate, having as accurate representation as we can do with our own skill set and our power. But our skill set isn't just in making our characters black in terms of hair. We also have unique body shapes. Like, the one of the things that E and I had talked about was, we want to represent everybody. When you go into your character, we want you to make whomever you want to make. And if Asians are already done really well in character creators, if white people are already done really well, if Indians are done really well, you don't have to go and reinvent that wheel. So if I can do them and I can just take what the industry already does really well and now do black people really well, we could have the best character creator ever created, because now all races of people, all ethnicities are represented. And, we've raised the bar so that all ethnicities have that same quality level, instead of it being really high here and then kind of been like, oh man, you're just gonna have to deal with this ashy looking black guy all the time. You're like, bro, why is his skin so dry? Like, why does my man's look like this? Like, bro, he looks like he's about to die. Like, somebody give him, So we really did focus on getting the representation well, but not for the sake of just representation. But it's just, it's like, we want to be the best. Like, we really want to strive to make a great game, because the other kind of put all this together. If you have to prove that there is a market for your game, then the money behind the industry is now putting the pressure on your game to be the thing that shows whether the market is viable or not. Problem is we might stink at video as a development studio. So because the game doesn't work, is that now proof that the market doesn't exist because we didn't sell well? No. We just might be bad game developers. We just might have made a shit game, and that's why the market didn't sell, is because we didn't do a good job. But when you have the onus on the studio to use this as a proof that their market exists, that's a unfair. I don't even want to say unfair, but that's not a true representation of whether there's a market for that or not, because the game has to be a good game first. Like the product has to be good, whether there's customers to buy it or not. Because even though you got a bunch of customers here, if it's a bad product, those customers are not going to show up.
Yeah, they'll extrapolate the wrong answer from the data.
Yeah, there we go. A long-winded way, and that's one thing, Ray, you'll know about me, is I do a lot of this, and then he comes in, it's like, pew, with a knife. It's like, yeah, let me cut straight to that. Cut all the fat off.
I think, Crandon, you should actually tell people what the game is. Before we get into that, the other story I was going to quickly tell is we get questions about, are there other races in this vision of the universe, right? So this is a universe where just Afro-descendant people just happen to inhabit, right? And Crandon said to me one time, and this stuck with me because it's another one of those education moments. He's like, Erik, we've been the main character. We've been the side character. We've been in the group. We've been a quest giver. It's not enough. We got to be the NPCs as well. And I was like, oh, because they are the texture and the tapestry for the world you're creating.
Right. And
that broke it open for me a little bit, right? Like, it's really funny. I get in and I say, hey, look, when we talk to a publisher, and by the way, our publisher meetings have been awesome, and people have really embraced us, right? But when I get into it and I go, look, I can create me in this game, but the world I'm going to explore is not going to look like me. And some people get a little tight about that. They're like, well, why don't you just, make games for everybody? Why don't you put everybody in the world? And I reflect back on Crandon's point. The moment you start diluting the blackness of this game is the moment that we've lost the point, which is, we're not talking about constantly finding inclusion in every game. We're talking about not being excluded from telling stories about a world that's never been put on screen before in games. By diluting this game, it kind of goes against its point. Now, we might play with some things in story, but the world itself, it shouldn't matter if it's a quote unquote black universe, right?
Let me ask a question, and I'm only bringing this game up because this is a game that I love, and it is one of my references when I go in and I build. When I go in and play The Witcher 3, how many black people did you see in The Witcher 3? And did we go into The Witcher and say, hey, this world, there's no black people in this world? Why? We didn't say there's not enough. We said, yo, this world is really dope. This is a really cool world. And we didn't ask why we weren't there, because the game was just fun. The world was what the creator created the world. And so I always find it very disingenuous when I have people asking me, it's like, well, where is everybody else? I'm like, you do understand, I'm a black person who's been playing video games for 40 years. Do you know how many wonderful games out there where either I didn't exist at all, or I was one character in it, and there was never a complaint about, hey, buddy. But then if I go to Africa right now and I go to Ghana or Nigeria, or you're talking about countries that are 90-something%, 97, 98% black. So it's not unheard of for there to be a world full of black people,
right,
around a bunch of black people. So the idea that we could create a world and create a universe that is filled with people that look like myself, and then say, hey, you know what? That's too many, you guys. It's too many. Like, hey, you need to include. I'm like,
did anyone actually say that to you? Because that sounds ridiculous.
I'm gonna tell you like this. The interesting part is I've heard that, but I haven't just heard it from non-black. I've not just heard it from non-black people. I've heard it from black people as well. Mm-hmm. But we got to remember, all of the programming that happens that makes people uncomfortable, black people get the same programming as everybody else. So the programming, so it doesn't matter whether the skin tone, the ethnicity of the person doesn't matter because it's the teaching. It's the thing that makes people say, I have friends now who I've had to educate that, if you get outside of a certain space, you'll see the world is not as the world is there's so many different parts of the world that actually don't look like what we experience here.
Sure.
But because we're here and we think the world everywhere looks like us, it's like, no, if you go to certain countries, most countries are homogenous. Like that's just what the world, that is the world itself. Yes. You go to a lot of countries are homogenous, and that's okay. And that's fine. Now, me and you had this conversation. True diversity isn't everybody in all spaces. To me, true diversity looks like I should have some all white games because those are stories that space actually represents. But I should also have some predominantly black games. But then I also should have some actual very multicultural games as well. Why? Because now you're talking about saying, I don't have to dilute my story so that I can tell the story of people that don't necessarily fit within the confines of the idea. If everybody has a space to tell their own stories, but then there's also a space for telling stories of together, then I get to experience this Eastern European culture that doesn't include me, and I get to enjoy it. I get to love it. I watch anime all the time. I'm an anime fanatic. Obviously, yes. The name of my company is Afrime. I wonder where I got that from. Interesting. But when I watch anime, I'm not looking at anime and saying, "Oh man, you know what? This story takes place in futuristic Tokyo. Why ain't no black people in that futuristic Tokyo?" My God, there's a reason for that. And I'm not mad at that. I'm looking at it like, that's really dope. That's cool. You don't have to include me in that because I'm not supposed to be there. Now, if you choose to include me in there, now that's where I get to hold you accountable. Because now when you decided to include me, now you better have done your homework. Because now I get to say, hey, bro, why you make me look like that? Why you give me the pink lips and dark skin and be like, oh, like now I gotta say something. But if you don't include me, I don't have anything to say. Number one, because it's not my creation. I didn't create it. I didn't put the time in. I didn't put the money behind it. If you want to have something to say, then either you need to create it yourself or go put go get good at it so you can be a part of the process. Mm-hmm. And so, hence why we started Afrime Studios is because I said, the industry has been around for 40 years, and I have yet to play a game that is based around my culture that does not have me doing a certain thing. If I'm not shooting something up, if I'm not running or playing a sport, generally speaking, I might be a character in the game, but it's not actually built around my culture.
Right.
So if the only way for that to happen is either me to convince somebody to go do it or to go do it myself.
Right.
So here we are. We're doing it ourselves, and we're doing it the hard way. You know what I'm saying? And it's fun to do it.
We're doing it ourselves, but we also have to convince people to help us let us do it ourselves.
Yes, indeed. So in a long-winded way, hopefully we answered your question, Ray. But and this is the conversation that E and I had day one. Yeah. Which is why once E let me know that he was interested in being a part and being a mentor. Because he started out as a mentor first, and that was our vetting process, where I got to see what his brain was. I got to see where he sat and where he was. He got to see where I was, and then that's when we were like, "Yeah, this is going to work because we fit." And that conversation, this is the conversation we had, and I was like, "Yeah, this is a kindred spirit."
That's fantastic. I love that you brought up The Witcher and how that had a specific setting. And, different stories, different games have different people in their settings. Let's talk about your game and your setting. It's described as Afro-futuristic. That can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Part of that should stay with the player, but how do you define that?
So when we say Afro-futurism, we are talking about imagining a space, imagining a futuristic society built around Afro-descendant cultures. And so when we say, we are specific about Afro-descendant because African-American is just as important as continental African. just as Afro Caribbeans or Afro South Americans. Like those are all separate cultures that have all their different flavors and different ideas and different influences.
Right.
And so what we want to do is bring those all together and kind of make a nice little jambalaya of all these different taking parts from these different cultures, and then saying, let's imagine what it would look like, 1,000 years of technological advancement. What would that look like? And so you get this really cool space of Afrobeat and hip hop and traditional rock and all these things and all these different art forms that Afro descendant people have created. But then you're talking about fashion. What does fashion look like? Now you can imagine what that fashion looks like. And it might look like, urban wear, but it also may look like traditional African garb and kente cloths and things there. So you start to pull all these different flavors from all these different cultures and then say, this is what Afrime Studios thinks Afro-futurism looks like. And because it's not a genre that has been explored in games, there is no space. There is no blueprint that people can point to and say, oh, well, this game did it this way, so this is what Afro-futurism looks like. So we get to kind of set that imagination for people because we get to be the first to the market to really give people that flavor and that feel.
Is that more exciting for you, or do you feel a lot of pressure, being the first?
It's exciting, extremely pressureful because a lot of what we have to create has to come from scratch. Like
Right.
there isn't an asset pack that you can be like, oh, this is Afro-futurism. Throw this in there. We got to imagine it, see it, create it. And a lot of what we create comes from, starts from nothing and then it goes that process because we don't have a bunch of references to go from. So like even when you think of these some of the cool websites that have these modular pieces, you got to take that modular piece and say, okay, this is the idea that they had. Okay, so how can we make this Afro-futurism? Like how can we shape this and add this flavor to it that gives it this unique feel that's different. So to go back to one of your previous questions, that is one of the challenges that we face is a lot of what we do is completely, 100% full imagination from start to finish.
We can't cut corners. So we can't, we have to build assets. And we've got teams in Ghana and Nigeria of African artists who are on our team. They're not outsourcers, right? They're a part of our company that we've been working with for years who this is their first time. This is a great story, actually. This is their first time getting to create Black characters for many years.
Oh, wow.
No, I was going to say, that was a really good callback. It's funny because E and I, we had that conversation with our character artists. And that was one of the things. And these guys are out of Nigeria and they said, they've been character artists for years and they've worked on several games, but they were like, they never thought they would get paid to make people that look like them. And so all of their time of creating Black character has been made in their own personal projects, not the stuff they got paid to do. And so a lot of them said that was the reason why they worked with us and why they're still working with us, through the ups and downs. Yeah, through the ups and downs of being a startup. Is they're like, bro, we get to get paid to make us, and that for them is something that they're very proud and very happy to do. And we're excited because we're like, we got some really, really super talented guys who believe in the project and actually believe in what we're doing because they're getting a chance to express themselves in a way they never thought they'd get paid to do so.
Like you were saying, like this is a mission for you and Erik, and they're part of the mission too now. Mm-hmm. So they're all working towards what you want to work. Like that's incredible.
Yeah, and if we ever make any significant money, we're investing in Ghana and Nigeria and other countries, and we've already been talking to African studios for co-development help and things like that. And we're not doing anything original in Africa. I mean, there are studios there who are primarily focused in mobile, but are eager to get into the console PC space. And so we just want to be a part of that community as well. When we talk about Afrofuturism as well, it's one of those things where we had to think about RPGs being different.
Okay.
And what would be, what would be an Afro-futuristic RPG, and how can we blend mechanics in order to stand out. And we were at DreamCon, which is a predominantly predominantly a Black convention for for anime and video games and things like that, and the amount of just passion for video games. I mean, we had people playing our very first Scratch demo. Like, it was like one level.
Rough.
And people playing using our character creator, because we had them on separate builds. And just like, Ray, I've been doing this thing a long time, and you've heard me like sound excited about a lot of things. Okay. I was touched emotionally about it, like, you just don't get it until you see someone being fulfilled by something that you had a little part of creating. That's any artist's dream, right? Like, holy smokes, someone is having an emotional connection to something we did. And that changed me. And so it made me like, it made me more curious, and it made me really soak in the electricity and the culture of DreamCon, and the folks that run DreamCon, RDC World, if you know those content creators, and their team, who are awesome. They've done an incredible job creating a space for creators of color, developers of color, and just players, people to like Crandon, like, I'm sure like both of you have experienced, like, convention spaces where you just feel safe. And
right.
And as I was soaking that in, I was looking at another underserved market, which is the fighting game community.
Okay. And
how the fighting games community is the underserved side of the esports community. Because, I worked at I worked at Riot on behalf of League of Legends for, a few years. And it was just, it was too wild for a lot of the bigger tournaments to get behind, right? So, a lot of trash talk and whatever. And I saw that, and I'm just like, we got to bring that into our game somehow. And Crandon and I started brainstorming, and we, I'd say it was Crandon. Crandon came up with a combat system that feels RPG, yet incorporates the combo systems and the tactile feeling of a fighting game.
Oh,
while you can still use ranged attacks and weapon attacks, but we give you a reason to upgrade your physical attacks, and we give you a reason to cross-pollinate between them and chain them and combo them. And it's just part of the Zola lore, right? Which the Zola are the foundation of our main character. And when I say foundation, I mean it from a story foundation. Crandon, you want to tell like just the top line of the story?
Yeah. And so before I jump in, I want to say this is the evidence of the kind of company we have. We've been doing a lot of talk about representation of Black and Afro-descendant people, but E being a part of the company and not being of that ethnicity shows we take value in whoever we work with. And so E's idea of saying, hey, you know what, let's figure out a way to make this fighting game. E's term was bringing the fighting game mechanic to the RPG space. That was his tagline. And I'm like, all right, let's figure this out. And so, although this combat system is definitely my baby, it comes as a result of E's vision to say, this is a space where we could actually be unique in our gameplay and not just unique in our world. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to shout out E because it's something that I absolutely love about our game, and he's the one who that kind of shaped that direction we went in because of his knowledge and his experience playing video games. And yeah, so just wanted to make sure that people see that we take value in all of our input, because no matter what you do, if you're part of Afrime Studios, your ideas and your input is valued, and no matter what you look like.
And one of these things too is like, I also knew from the industry that it hadn't been done, or it hasn't been done a lot or well. And that got reinforced with a meeting with Xbox first party. And the fact that like literally, and I, I'm giving your audience like a little bit of a little bit of a look behind the curtains of, pitching a video game for publishing, right? And what you do is you go in there and you pitch your game, and it's like pitching a movie. You've got like 5 minutes to really get them in. You got 5 minutes to answer their questions, and then you got 5 more minutes just to like put a controller in their hands maybe. And Xbox first party was like, this is really cool. It's not big enough for an Xbox game. And we're like, yeah, we know that. Halo, and also he said it's not big enough for an ID at Xbox game. This is truly a problem for me. And that's a great thing to ever hear, by the way. When you create a problem for someone in business development because they're interested, but they want to see more, but you don't quite fit their model.
That means you've done something very unique.
Yeah. And what he said to us was, fighting game mechanics in an RPG have been done before, but I've never seen them done well. So good luck.
Yeah.
And that scared the shit out of me. But at the same time, I'm looking at us, and I'm looking at where we are and what rooms we've gotten into, thanks to our good friends at CAA and thanks to our own individual hustles as well. And I'm saying, we're pushing this boulder up the hill no matter what. We've got a lot of things stacked against us. So yeah, I haven't been working out lately, Crandon. I'm sorry.
That's from pushing. That's from pushing the boulder, bro. I'm sure you got it, my guy. I'm sure you got it, brother.
But seriously, like, it's been bad for me. I haven't been going to the gym, and I'm eating poorly. I've literally got a donut like right here. But I look at other developers much smarter than I would have looked at their partner and said, "We're cutting that feature. We got to get to market. We got to make this easiest as possible, cheap as possible. And we got to sell them on one mechanic, right? Like Bionic Commando was a grappling hook,
right?
Like one mechanic, and that has worked in the industry. But the great thing about what's happening in the industry now is that, and what doesn't scare me about adding difficulty and pushing this boulder up the hill, because we have to push it up the hill anyway for a lot of reasons, is the fact that the traditional green light system is breaking down at all the publishers, because the middle class of video game development, which is somewhere between $10 and $50 million, is gone.
Right. It's been obliterated. And this happened in films as well. So the rom-com disappeared. Right.
Comedy movies.
Right.
It wasn't in horror movies before Blumhouse disappeared until A24 and Blumhouse really proved that you give someone $5 million in creative freedom, they can create something really special. So that's what's happening in games right now. The middle class of games, which is part of a portfolio strategy, has completely disappeared. So now, Activision is like, all of our chips on Call of Duty, and all of our chips on the latest version of WoW. And when they don't hit as hard as they earnings call project, the entire industry just absolutely shakes with fear, and fewer checks start getting written, and thousands of people start getting laid off, because the industry has done away with a portfolio strategy. It's called IP and franchise development only. Is this an IP? Can we develop it? And that's what happens when game development moves outside of the developer side of the building and into the marketing side of the building. And I'm a marketer. I love all my marketing friends, but creators need to create.
Absolutely.
And marketers just need to spend money, and that's it.
Traitor.
And so without a middle class, you have to prove that you can deliver sort of middle class level quality on an indie budget, or and so that's something like, okay, we're going to have to do this on an indie budget. Guess what? We were going to have to do this on an indie budget anyway, because they're going to take one look at our company and see Black founder. It doesn't take a lot of research to know that Black founders, especially Black women, represent like 0.3% of all companies invested in America. It's venture capital just doesn't like Black people.
Whoa.
This has got to work out for me, Crandon, because I'm burning a lot of coal.
You have put a match to a lot of to some bridges there, brother.
But nothing I'm saying is untrue, because
that is also true.
It's fact. Go to your Claudes and go to your chats and and say, dear Claude, dear agent, what's the percentage of African American people at startups who get funded?
Right.
By race. Break it down. And so we're Sisyphus, right? We're pushing I think it was Sisyphus. We're pushing this boulder up the hill no matter what. So adding a feature that speaks directly to our audience and allows us a logical multiplayer option if we have enough funding for multiplayer. Now we're talking. Creating a world specifically for our target audience that people like me have never experienced either and are deeply curious about.
Same here.
Yeah, now we're talking, product differentiation and creating a character creator that speaks emotionally to our target audience and speaks effectively to our secondary and tertiary audiences. Now we're creating magic, because now we can all put ourselves into this world. And that's what separates games from films, is that they're about engagement. They are lean in entertainment, not lean back. Go ahead, Crandon.
No, I was about to say he's in his bag. You see how smoothly he put all that together?
Absolutely.
He is in his bag today. I see. I see you, brother. I see you. Mm-hmm. I need this, Ray. I need this transcript, because I need to take what you just said, and I need to be able to regurgitate that with any future meetings. Because the way he put that together, man, I got goosebumps. See, I got goosebumps hearing it. And I'm a part of the company.
And I really appreciate that you said Sisyphus, because I was a Greek mythology nerd when I was a kid. The reference now would be like the guy in the Red Bull commercial.
Isn't it Atlas? I don't know.
Atlas was holding up the world.
Yep.
Yes, that was funny.
I'll kind of leave you with this, right? And let Crandon get back to storytelling. Is when people ask us if there's a market for this game, I point to every game that's on Steam right now and say, is there any game on Steam right now that knows its audience better than we do? Because I can speak to my audience right now, and I'm speaking to them right now. I can tell you exactly where my audience is right now. I don't have to go looking for the extraction shooter fan.
Right.
Generic, genre-based user acquisition plan that's going to cost you 40% of your budget. I don't have to do that. Now, that doesn't mean all Black people are going to love this game. It doesn't.
Of course.
RPGs are different than shooters, are different than sports games. But I have a higher than probable chance to speak directly to my audience and speak to them with emotional calls to action, which is the art of advertising and public relations, right? Read Ogilvy's book, right? Like, it's just, if you could reach someone through an emotion first, then you've already sold them, and that's, we're not trying to sell. We're just trying to create. We're artists first, but we're talking about all of this business stuff because this, it goes back to your second question, which is, what are the challenges you face as a majority Black owned business? Is proving that we can make a business and find a customer. And it's been really, really interesting seeing it through the perspective of Crandon and our other coworkers, and then being on the other side of the table, really, right? Like, as a developer, I create shit now, right? And it doesn't always work. I get my feelings hurt, and then Crandon tells me, work on it. But no, like, I went out there really early with we're a majority Black owned business. And people looked at me and said, you're just using race as a way to market. And I'm like, holy shit, they're not wrong. And what I did is I backed up and I go, okay, I've got to establish the fact that we're actually making a great product. And then if you need another reason why we're the ones to make this great product and not, this other company or this other developer in, Eastern Europe, is because most of our developers look like Crandon. And that is, it's not a DEI play. That is about product market fit and expertise in knowing your audience and what they will buy, or what entertainment they've been searching for their entire video game lives.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Crandon, I want to ask you, we've talked about some of these things throughout the interview. We've talked about music a bit, your love of anime, and obviously you love video games. You've said that Unyverse is kind of like blending your passions for all of these things. I wanted to ask you about your specific influences in each of those categories and how they've affected what you've done or what you've trying to do with Unyverse.
Cool. So Unyverse is an Afro-futuristic RPG set in a world where humans are able to map the rate in which their soul synchronizes with their body. And so we play on this idea that, people only using 10% of the brain at any given moment. Well, guess what? Imagine if that is only because that's the rate in which your soul synchronizes with your body. So that's why the average human only uses 10%. But then we look at a person like Usain Bolt and says, he's 6'4", 180 pounds, but he's the fastest man on the planet. Why is he faster than every other 6'4", 180-pound person? Well, what if it's because his soul synchronized at a higher rate, which allows him to pull more out of his physical body than, say, the next person? And so that's the technical basis of the sci-fi portion of our story, of the way our universe is built. And so for me, I am a big RPG. I've always been a big RPG guy. I started with playing Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star on Sega back when I was yay high. And I say playing, although I was never able to touch the controller because I got a 6-year-old. I got my oldest brother is 6 years older than me. So of course he had the controller, and we would only get to give him directions on which way he should go when there's a fork in the road, or answer a question. And when he gets a yes or no, hey guys, should I choose yes or should I choose no? So that was me playing the game at that age. But some of my favorite games are Knights of the Old Republic, Dragon Age, of course, Skyrim. As I said, The Witcher 3. I absolutely love The Witcher.
Fantastic.
Those, and then fighting game wise, I'm a Street Fighter guy. Mortal Kombat.
You're also
Tekken.
Star Wars.
Oh yes, Star Wars, Jedi Survivor, the Jedi Fallen Orders. I love those, and you'll see all those influences in. So like I'm gonna talk about the combat system, and we have the proficiency tree. If you played Skyrim, you've heard of proficiency before, but we wanted to. I love the idea that the more you do something, the better you get at it. And that was that, you grind the proficiency tree to be like, yo, hand to hand or dual wield, I'm going to get really good at that. And I get these extra points that I get from that. And so we take it and flip it on its head and say, with us, the more proficient you are in a combat stance, the more available moves that you have to choose from and the more inputs, because we do have the fighting game mechanic. So every attack in our game is assigned to a particular input. So if I do left and square, that's a move. Up and square, that's a move. Square by itself is a move. And so you can imagine when we start thinking of fighting game inputs, you got forward, square, down. You think of, so if I become more proficient in a fighting stance, I have my input list gets larger. And so now I can start comboing more moves together, the more inputs I have available to me. Now let's go ahead and take that a step further and say, what if you were able to assign a move to that new input? So now so if I'm thinking of like UFC, because I'm a big UFC 3 guy. Didn't play UFC 4 a lot. Love UFC 3. I think that's the best version in that series. But in UFC 3, you got your move list on the right hand side, you got your input list, and I can assign this axe kick here, this spinning wheel kick here, and now I can go and create my own combo by just stringing these inputs together. So this is what we allowed you to do so that you can create your own combo, because very early on I was a big Assassin's Creed guy, the one with Ezio in there.
Yeah.
But the issue I had is after I've done this assassination 175 times, I no longer want to see this cutscene assassination anymore. It's like I got tired of doing it. So what happens if you can switch out your moves as you go through the game, as you play somebody and like, oh, this guy just did a really cool move on me. I'm going to steal that move, and then I'm going to add it to my list of moves that I can do. Then I can turn around and do it on the next person I play against. And so you can see how that could build into something where you really are creating that character creator that we love about, and that customization that we love about RPGs. We're taking that and taking that to the granular level of combat. And so we feel like you can see how we pull for the proficiency tree, pull from the fighting games that I love, and then create a amalgamation of all of those different systems to create a wholly unique system and a unique combat system for the RPG space. Oh, I'm a big God of War Ragnarok guy. You'll see that in the camera and how close, where we sit the camera, how close we get you into visceral combat, the quick switch of combat stances, moving so I can go from hand to hand to for my first 3 hits, and then switch out to using an axe on my 3rd hit, and then going into a dragon punch on my 4th hit, just by switching out between combat stances in the middle of your combat. And that's all backed up by the story, because there's nanotechnology in this community, because this is a sci-fi game. And so if I have a weapon that is nanotech, then that nanotechnology should be able to morph into any particular kind of weapon that I have schematically assigned to my loadout. And how we kind of showing you how we kind of wrap this all in Afro-futurism. As a Afro-descended person, one of the things that you can notice about our culture, no matter where you find us, we tend to be very jewelry heavy. Like, we love our chains, we love our bracelet, we love our rings. Imagine if those things are your weapons, and how they sit when they are unequipped. So if my bracelet is my sword, shield, knife and all that, but when I'm not in combat, it sits on and when it's unequipped, it sits on my wrist as a bracelet. But then when I go to pull it out, changes from a bracelet and changes into a weapon. So now, because if it's a futuristic society, you probably wouldn't see dudes with big swords on their back and big and axes and clubs and all that. So how would they take what we do in our culture and then give it a actual futuristic meaning and then turn that into an actual gameplay mechanic? And that's the kind of level of thinking and the level of weaving that we're doing and saying, okay, this is what we do. Okay, this is what it means to the game. Okay, this is what it means as a mechanic. And all that flows into how the combat system is able to work and actually still fits within the world story that we're telling, so that you are never really taken out of the imagination in the world that we're imagining.
That sounds very cool. I'm a big RPG guy as well, so the combat system sounds a little intimidating to me, but I'm excited to check out more of it. I wanted to talk more about the story specifically. The vibe I'm getting from it, and could be totally off base, is that it almost reminds me a bit of Dune, but instead of spice, there's like a social currency going on in the world of Universe. Does that make any sense at all?
So it's funny you say Dune, because Dune is one of the few sci-fi worlds that I have never taken. I have not watched any of the movies. I have not read any of the books. The books were really hard for me. I'm a big sci-fi fantasy reader, and those books were really hard for me to get into.
They're weird.
So I'm gonna leave that to E to answer, because E
So you're not wrong, right?
Is a Dune guy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you're not wrong on our use of celerium as spice, like a spice substitute. So, but celerium, much like spice has some properties to it, but mostly it's a battle of. It's less about it being a magical substance, and mostly it's about an allegory of colonialism. Except for the fact that everyone's Afro-descendant. So now we can all kind of enjoy this allegory without it being, suddenly, oh, I feel attacked because I look like Erik. No, man, come on. You can learn about history. It's fun. So you're not wrong. There's a slight homage to Dune. The social currency of it all is, it's a little off. It really revolves around its importance as a fuel source, as a basically as a fuel source. It has so much economic value. It has the ability to create endless energy through technologies, right. And that's what multiple like hidden parties are all vying over, right? And our main character has to investigate, all of these things that are happening within their main hub, which is Neoma. And in investigating, this large city of Neoma, and being a Zola warrior, which is much like, the protective resource of this city. You also have like an ancestral element, which leads to special abilities. That is something that Crandon didn't get a chance to mention, which can interact with the hand-to-hand combat. But the overall story, it's an allegory of colonialism. It's a fight over resources, much like in a lot of ways like Dune. You're really close on that one. But it's told through an entirely Afro-futuristic lens. So I think we're giving the audience permission to see it for what it is, which is just characters fighting over money.
Because sorry, just to jump in. Because when we're talking about the story of Universe in the game itself, as a Zola, you have these ideas and these themes that are taught to you as you were raised, you know, because you're a part of the culture. But you have to ask yourself, is the is the culture serving us as a Neoman people individually, or where does it sit at the world at large? And what is the
And the
what is your
universe too.
and in the universe at large, and what is your responsibility to that? Because we all, as our people, have our own individual cultures that we cling to and that we identify with, and sometimes that identification within that one culture may be at the detriment to others. And then you have to kind of ask yourself as a person, like, hoarding this resource or hoarding this information for the betterment of your culture, does that hurt the other cultures that you're not in competition with, that share the world, that share the space with? And we kind of in the story, we, as a Zola warrior, your job is to protect your culture, but also it's also to make your own decision of how this should operate. Should this be shared? And then if we do share it, who do you share it with?
Yeah.
Because you also have, and a lot of these things, a lot of these themes are themes that Afro-descended people can understand, because we always talk about how Afro-descended culture is popular culture around the world. And we always talk about how much of our culture benefits everyone else but us. So should we have been more protective of hip hop and said, hey, you know what? It's been used as a weapon against us, but maybe we should have been more protective to hold it into ourselves and keep it amongst ourselves. What about rock and roll? What about R&B? Like, when we start thinking of all these things, we're like, and so what we did is what our goal was to set out and tell a story that keeps the themes of Afro-descended people, and tell these stories that have already been told, but tell them from a perspective that may or may not have been told already, because I don't know if anyone has asked us, what does that look like from the inside? You know, as when you hear someone who is not of the culture and they're rapping, does anybody really ask Black people how they feel about that? And then depending on who you ask, there's a different response depending on who you ask. Mm-hmm. Some people are like, oh man, we're not, let everybody have it. And then some people are like, nah, this should be for our culture and us only. And so we kind of played on that when we were telling the story, and the things that you experienced when you're a Zola. You got this solarium, and this solarium has it has all of these amazing qualities and properties that could benefit so many people. But you're also the steward of making sure that it isn't used incorrectly. And the only way that you can verify and be sure that it's not used incorrectly is to control its use. But when you control its use, you also limit how many people it can help.
Right.
So sometimes you got to let it go and then be okay with what it does. And then you as a player, you're going to deal with that as you're going through, and you come across these different groups who are now being exposed to things that and you're like, I don't know if this should share, because what happens if Solarium gets used and it's used and it subjugates a whole planet further down in the universe? How would you feel about that if that's what it's been used for? Or if it's used and created a bomb that kills 5 million people? How would you feel if I kept this in, then those people would not have done it? But what if it's been used to power, a whole planet and take, and travel and make intergalactic travel possible? And now you're connecting worlds together. So how much good can it do? And then you have to kind of weigh that. And so we are looking at that, and you kind of deal with those things as you go through the story and how the story actually unfolds. And I think for us, that's the really cool part, is we get to show the positives and the negatives and how it can affect, and also be able to show people that there isn't a black and white. is the world is just a bunch of different shades of gray.
Yeah.
And depending upon what side of that gray or what side you sit on, the same situation could look vastly different depending on, your interaction with that particular event. And I think we do a really good job in the story of showing different characters who experience the same thing or experience something, and their response to it be vastly different.
The choice, right?
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like, you can make the best possible choice, and still it might have a detrimental effect, right?
Facts.
And as an indie game, we have to work within our scope, but we're still shooting for that 20 to 25 hours of core gameplay, while still having side missions that expand that and things like that. And the multiplayer I mentioned earlier is a nice to have, right? It's a luxury for indie studios to be able to create multiplayer because of live service operations costs and just networking expertise and all that stuff. And so if we're blessed to be able to do that as a DLC down the line, don't accuse us of holding back features, please. Thank you. But yeah, man, what I dig about the story is that it is there's a very linear part of the story, but there are multiple branches to its experience. And I think that's the earmark of a great RPG is, you're going to the castle to kill the dragon, but just how you get there, take your time, go see what the monk on the hill wants to do. And, when Crandon talks about proficiency and the better you get at something, is the more you use it, I immediately think of Vanilla WoW, where you had to hit a sword against a freaking crab 100 times. And you're like, how come I don't know how to swing a fucking sword? It's not like that, right? Like, you're a powerful warrior. It's about expanding the amount of abilities you have access to. So, when imagine me being in the back of an Uber and hearing this, and knowing that I've worked on The Witcher, knowing that I've worked on
Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2. I worked on Witcher 2, Mass Effect 2, or Witcher 3 and Mass Effect 2. I don't know. I blanked out a lot. And League of Legends and all that stuff behind the scenes, and Prototype, and and Dragon Ball Z. And so I'm throwing out all these names because I want to impress your audience. I desperately need validation. But all of this is to say, I've gone to Ray and I've said, look, Ray, I've got these guys from this developer and we're doing it's going to be the best of these features ever. Imagine not having to do that because I'm the person that I have to impress. And I'm sitting in the back of an Uber, and instead of being closed off because it's an Uber driver instead of someone from BioWare, instead of being closed off, I chose to be open, and I'm so goddamn thankful that I was. Because we all get in moods, I'm sure, Ray, you've been pitched video game idea 100 million times, right? And so have I. I've been in airports where my kid's got a great idea for a video game, and that person turned out to be Brendan Green, and now he's rich. No, but no, instead of being closed off, I sat in the back of this car eating pizza, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And he didn't call me, which reminded me in high school. You'd give a girl a number, and then you get on social media and like, oh my God, your hair looks great, and I really love what you did on TikTok. And so I did that for 8 months until he recognized me, and I became that pick me girl. So, by the way, I don't know what half these terms mean, so if I'm saying something deeply offensive, I pre-apologize on behalf of Afrime Studios and our future publishers. So yeah, man, like what I'm saying is, whether you believe in fate or God or whatever, man, or just pure creative energy that seeks out its equal part. Crandon picked me up in a car. I chose to be open, and it's changed my life. And it's not because this thing is going to be, it's not because we're going to be the next Larian Studios. It's because, like to use your analogy of a band, I'm just making great music with people, and that feels good.
Yeah, for sure. This reminds me of a big Ted Lasso moment. Be curious, not judgmental.
Exactly. Ask questions. Be open. Yeah, that's a great deep cut from playing darts.
Yes, absolutely. So I love the story you guys are trying to tell and the world you guys are trying to build. I wanted to ask you guys, I think this could translate really well into movies, TV, comics. Do you have any people you dream of collaborating with to tell the story of universe in other ways? The first thing that popped into my head was Christopher Priest. He's a fantastic African-American comic books writer. He wrote some of my favorite Green Lantern and Deadpool stories. But yeah, I'm like, Priest writing a universe comic book sounds awesome to me.
You know what? We are very fortunate because we do have a Marvel editor as our narrative director. Charles Beecham worked on both Destiny 2 as a narrative writer, or titles mean nothing, as a narrative guy, and then also edited various comics at Marvel. And he is an incredible talent, and he is equally as passionate about this game, and he has helped Crandon put meat on the bones of this world, right? And that's the beautiful thing about this band coming together. You know what? Like, you got two guitarists here. We didn't know we needed a drummer to set the rhythm, and we still don't have a bass player, so we got to figure that out, but like people, I'll say this too. If you're a studio out there, just know that a lot of your employees have reached out to us because they believe in what we do.
Very cool.
And
for you guys, maybe not the others.
And that just goes to show how people just don't feel heard or appreciated. And so we've been able to leverage the talents of a number of people who are moonlighting for us as well. And people who like Charles are not moonlighting for us, but actually work with us directly. And so we see this as as not just us. Everybody makes a game and sees it as an IP that could live forever. We just want to make a great game first. That's the only thing we're focused on. But CAA is our reps.
Right.
We have had no less than 3 different people talk to us about film, TV, and comics, and offer us deals, soft deals. It's usually whatever. And that's before we have a product in the marketplace. And we are incredibly humbled by that, right? Like Crandon had a dream one day and woke up, and 5 or 6 years later, now people want to put that dream on the big screen.
Yeah, I mean, that's a testament to what you guys are doing, that you're already having conversations about that, people wanting to work with you.
Yeah, and so when you talk about dream people, there's just so many people that are incredible. Ryan Coogler.
Yeah, of course.
Misha Green.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the first person that actually we ever engaged to just do a voiceover for us, because I know her through a friend, was Miss Pauletta Washington.
Okay.
And she said yes. And then obviously SAG then had a what's it called? Went on strike and, because of video game voiceovers, and she's like, I can't work with you guys. And that was so heartbreaking because it's Pauletta Washington. And
Facts.
But this isn't just about naming all the top tier Black creative executives and creatives. We've met with writers, we've met with directors, we've met with people from all backgrounds who are drawn to this property. And that's how we got CAA is because our agent was drawn to the property. It's like, I want to put this in the universe as much as you do. And that validation, from for audience members that don't know CAA, right? Like, it's a world recognized representation agency for the greatest talent in the universe.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest talent agencies in the world.
One of the big three, right? Yeah. So whether you are a footballer, CAA base, or whether you are, an exceptional director or writer or whatever, or game developer, you are very fortunate to have CAA behind you.
And they were one of the first major talent agencies to dip their toes in the gaming world. So props to them for that.
Exactly. And hiring former game developers as their agents. And that makes a world of difference. Because when we talk to people, when we talk to people, when our agent talks to people, when we talk to our agent, my brain's going. We don't have to explain to him X, Y, or Z, right? Like, he gets it. He knows the production cycle, not just because he's learned it as part of the business, but because he's actually been a developer.
Right.
And we're so thankful to have, to have him on our team and supporting us. And literally it is, he is doing us a solid because we are, we are Sisyphus. We are, it's going to be, it's equally as much of a challenge pushing this boulder up the hill for him as well. But yeah.
I've kept you guys for a really long time, so let me get you out of here on this question. What can gamers expect from Afrime Studios in the next year? And in your wildest dreams, where do you see yourselves in a decade?
Great. All right. So within this next year, we look to have something in gamers' hands to be a very a really good slice of what Universe is, because that's our goal, is always to make sure our players have play a big part in how we go about building the game. And so we've been building in we've been building in public.
We showed a lot of sausage this past year, and that sounds awful. I'm sorry.
I didn't want to say anything. I was just gonna let that hang.
It's really funny. Like, especially for people who have not been in the industry, to see what an early game looks like it's basic as hell, it's ugly as hell, and then like 3 years later, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen because the polish comes in
right
at the end. Sorry, Crandon, I cut you off. But we want to put an incredibly strong demo into people's hands this year, and we're going to sign with a publisher this year. The reason why we're going to sign with a publisher, because it is very in vogue to just self-publish, is because we want to lay the groundwork for other publishers and platforms to look at other companies like ours and give them a chance.
Yep. And so when you ask us, like, where do we see ourselves in a decade? That's what we see ourselves in a decade, actually being the leading publisher for games centered around Afro-descendant people and other marginal communities. Because our look is this: is if the other publishers, if they don't want to take the chance, we know what this process looks like, because we're going to be successful at this process. And so we will be uniquely qualified to help other publishers or other developers of color to navigate this process and make it easier, because we have already established all those connections. We've already built that bridge. Yeah. And so we always hear that conversation about, if you don't get access to the table, create your own table. That's our job. Our job is to create that table, because the industry has had 40 years to do it, and it hasn't done it. So somebody has to be the one to go in and say, this is going to get done. And then we can also make sure that it's done in a way that's not exploitative, because as we know, the historical processes that have happened is resource extraction and not and not equity. So so when we say where we see ourselves in a decade, that's what we see, and we just have to. We got to weather the early storm, because the cool stuff is on the other side.
Yeah, man. Like, what's interesting? I was trying to think of like similar historical situations. None of them fit, but what I like about what Riot Games is doing now is they're investing in smaller studios and allowing them to use their IP to create new game experiences, and they're investing in technology companies, and they're investing in original IP. And that's like the closest analogy is I'd love to be like Mark and Brandon someday, where we've made a game, it's successful, it creates a universe, no pun intended, it creates a platform for direct distribution to its target audience. So, we can own our relationship with our target audience, and then invite other very creative people who deserve to be there, access to that audience.
That sounds amazing. I am so excited to see what you guys come up with. Crandon, Erik, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'm excited, so excited for your game. If you guys want to learn more about Unyverse and Afrime Studios, go to universes.com. There's also a direct link in the Facebook and YouTube descriptions. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And we'll see you next time on RPadTV. Thanks for watching. I'm going to make hearts now. Watch this.